All right, joining us now is Helit Barel, former director at Israel's National Security Council. Helit Barel, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. Let me begin by asking you, Benny Gantz has said that Netanyahu is preventing us from advancing towards true victory. What does he mean, and are we increasingly seeing this sentiment being echoed by other quarters as well within Israel and its war cabinet as well?
Yes, well, I think what he means is what at least here seems to be quite obvious, that decisions aren't being taken at the strategic level, which makes it impossible to come to a conclusion to this war or move on towards whatever needs to be done. For example, he talks about the day after in Gaza. Well, the day after is already upon us. It's not after, it has already come. And there's a reluctance from Prime Minister Netanyahu to take real decisions on this matter, for example, on who might govern, when the answer might be anybody but Hamas. But those answers aren't being given because he has a problem with his coalition. So, for example, any role for the Palestinian Authority in that would create a problem for him in his coalition. So he's refraining from moving in those directions. So that's what Benny Gantz means by saying he's not leading us towards those goals. He's captured with his own coalition.
Right, and we're 8 months into this war, Helit Barel, and there are 37,000 people dead in Gaza. I presume not all of them are Hamas militants. We just heard Jake Sullivan say there we need to have a comprehensive truce and hostage deal, and that has to be taken by both sides. To many within Israel and outside, it seems that Netanyahu is purposely elongating this war for his own political gain.
Well, it's very hard to determine, of course, if that's what's going on. And let's be realistic and fair. Right now, there's an offer on the table, which the United States as well has said is far-reaching from Israel, that we're waiting on Hamas, irrespective of Prime Minister Netanyahu's stance. On the other side, you have Yahya Sinwar, who is not really interested in ending either, and is not interested in really finalizing a deal. Now, a deal from the Israeli perspective, which was agreed to, and an offer was put forth, obviously promoted by not only the United States, but also Qatar and Egypt, all those mediating countries. So we're at a state now where, despite whatever Netanyahu does or doesn't do, we also have Hamas on the other side to contend with. Whether Netanyahu has taken every step to make this as swift as possible, as effective as possible, if we look at the way things have transpired, it's very hard for me to stand behind something like that. But at the moment, I don't think he's the one who's stopping a deal.
Right. There are many people all around the world who are saying that every international law has been broken. The fact that children are dying in Gaza every day. 4 hostages were saved in this rescue operation, but there are over 200 people who are dead. What do you think about these rescue operations, given that Hamas has said, of course with caveats, that they are willing to give the hostages back if there is a pause in the war?
No, Hamas hasn't said that. Hamas has said a complete cessation of all hostility. Hamas wants to continue to retain its control over the Gaza Strip, something that is completely unacceptable after the massacres of October 7th. There's no reason why Hamas, not just from an Israeli perspective, from a Palestinian perspective, from the perspective of the world, should have any right or viability to exist in the Gaza Strip or anywhere else. It is no different than ISIS, Al-Qaeda. It is the worst, probably the worst operating terrorist organization in the world today. So Hamas wants things that are more far-reaching than that. Let's just be clear about that. Now, on the other hand, you're talking about civilians and the hostage rescue operation. I'm very glad that our hostages have been rescued, 4 of them. There's still 120 that Hamas is holding. All Hamas needs to do, if it had any concern for civilian population in Gaza, was to set them free. Of course, that's not happening. Of course, there is, not only does Hamas have no concern for civilian population, but Hamas is also using civilian population. Now, take, for example, Noal Gamani, the young woman who was finally returned to her very ill, terminally ill mother, whom hopefully she will get to recognize as her before she passes away. She was held by a normal Gazan family, supposedly with no ties to Hamas or Al-Aqsa or anybody in there. The father is a doctor, the son is a freelance reporter. With all due respect, if you're holding hostages, you are going to get harmed. If you are operating...
Helit Barel, what is the red line? What is the red line in this war? How many more people have to die? What is the collateral?
First and foremost, we have no true idea, and the UN has determined that, what the numbers are in Gaza. I'm not saying there haven't been casualties in Gaza. That is the price of war. It's been the price of war for every nation. It is the price of war for Israel. It is mostly the price of war that Hamas has inflicted on this entire region and is continuing to inflict, but its refusal to move forward on any proposition that has been put forward so far since the initial exchanges over 6 months ago. So the question of casualties, I might direct you, if you had a direct line, to Yahya Sinwar or his proxies, Hania, and so on in the world.
I'm seeing
this is something
we're seeing the numbers, we're seeing the videos, we're seeing what
numbers are numbers.
The WHO, the UN. We're seeing there is enough evidence out there that 35,000 people are dead. 60% of those are women and children. But I do want to move on. Battles are fought on the front line, not by bombing civilian hospitals. They're not fought. They're not fought in civilian areas. But I'll leave it at that, Helit Barel. I do want to talk about the internal issues in the war cabinet. I do want to talk about the Go ahead.
With all due respect, facts are important. I want to make sure that we understand. Those numbers, these are numbers that are put out by the Hamas-controlled ministry, and the United Nations has said specifically, not weeks ago, that they are at least 50% exaggerated, and you should check those facts.
These are numbers being put out and validated by world organizations, Helit Barel.
Untrue. The United Nations said specifically the numbers have been radically exaggerated, and they're probably at least 50% lower. Check your facts. This is something not I am stating, the United Nations are stating.
Okay. What is the end game in this war? Let's move on.
Depends on who you ask. Depends on who you ask.
I ask you as an Israeli, what is the end game in this war for the Netanyahu government?
The Netanyahu government is a different question, and this is exactly where we connect to what you said in the beginning about why Gantz has departed, because the stated goals are completely unclear. What they are doing and what they are stating are very, very different, and therefore we're finding ourselves in a very, very difficult strategic situation in terms of what the Netanyahu government is doing. In terms of the Israeli stated goals, which I think are highly supported by the public in Israel, first and foremost, the return of all our hostages. If it is in rescue operations, and if there is a cost to the other side on this, that's what's going to happen. But needless to say, the best way to do it is a deal, which is waiting to be answered by Hamas. So first and foremost, the return of the hostages. Second, no Hamas control of the Gaza Strip. Hamas cannot have any real military power, any real civilian control over any assets in the Gaza Strip, less we will end up staying there forever and ever to make sure that doesn't happen. Right. And the majority of Israelis do not want to hold Gaza. That is very clear in every poll and every inquiry. Okay. So the world needs to come together and continue to pressure Hamas. We're hearing about Qatar finally kicking them out if they don't move along, freezing their assets. They don't move along. It's taken way too long for Qatar to put that pressure on this terrorist organization that they ordered. Hopefully that will help, and we can get an end to this war and move on to rebuild and look to better things.
Okay, that's an important point you're making there, Helit Barel. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon and sharing the thoughts of Israeli people who certainly don't want to continue this war, and they do want a comprehensive deal on the table accepted by both sides. Helit Barel, thanks very much indeed. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.